Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to demystify one of the most powerful tools in global trade, the export sales contract. Now, if you've ever thought about taking your business beyond your home country, getting this document right isn't just a good idea. It's absolutely essential. So let's dive right in.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at why selling something internationally is a whole different ballgame. Then we'll learn the universal language that makes it all work. After that, we'll map out who's responsible for what, talk about what to do when things don't go as planned, and we'll wrap it all up with a simple blueprint for your own contracts.
So let's start with the big challenge. You see, making a deal with someone in another country isn't just a handshake over a long distance. It's more like a handshake across two completely different legal worlds. I mean, really think about it for a second. When you sell to someone in your own city or state, everyone knows the rules. There's one law. But what happens when your customer is halfway across the world, living and working under a totally different set of laws? Which rules apply then?
And that brings us to this critical question of proper law. At home, it's a no-brainer. One country, one law. But with an export deal, you're suddenly faced with a choice. If there's a problem, do we follow your country's laws or the buyer's? If you don't decide this upfront in your contract, you're basically setting yourself up for a massive headache later on.
So if it's that complicated, how does anyone get business done internationally? Well, it turns out there's a really smart solution. Businesses around the world have developed a shared, universal language just for trade.
The answer, and this is a big one, is something called Incoterms. Now, it's really important to get this. These aren't laws made by governments. They're a practical rulebook made by business for business. They create a standard dictionary so that when you talk about delivery, the person you're selling to knows exactly what you mean, whether you're in Delhi or in Dubai.
But here's the catch, and you absolutely have to remember this. Incoterms are not automatic. They mean nothing unless you specifically write them into your contract. The good news is, it just takes a single sentence to bring this whole powerful system into your agreement and make everything clearer.
Okay, so this is where Incoterms really start to shine. Think of them as a clear roadmap that shows exactly where your job as the seller ends and where the buyer's job begins. No guesswork needed.
You can picture it like a sliding scale. On one end, you have EXWORKS, or EXW. This is the simplest option for you, the seller. It basically means your responsibility ends the moment the goods are ready to be picked up from your factory gate. It's fantastic if you're new to exporting. On the complete opposite end is DDP, or Delivered Duty Paid. Here, you handle everything: shipping, customs, taxes, right up to the buyer's front door. It's more work for you, but it's a premium service for your customer.
Now, let's talk about one of the most common terms you'll hear. FOB, which stands for Free On Board. This is a classic middle-of-the-road option, especially for shipping by sea. Your job is to get the goods to the port and load it onto the ship. The magic moment is when the goods cross the ship's rail. At that exact point, poof, the risk and the responsibility for all future costs transfer over to the buyer.
Okay, here are two more that sound almost the same: CNF and CIF. And they are very similar, but one little letter makes a huge difference. For both, you, the seller, pay for the shipping. But with CIF, that I is for insurance. It means you also have to arrange and pay for insurance to protect the goods during their journey. Why bother? Well, offering CIF gives your buyer peace of mind, and that can be a real selling point.
Look, in a perfect world, every deal would go smoothly. But we all know this isn't a perfect world, right? So what happens when things go south? Let's talk about how you handle disagreements like a pro.
And a really common reason for disputes is quality. Just put yourself in your buyer's shoes. They're thousands of miles away, they only get to see the products after they've arrived, and usually after they've already paid you. So what happens if they open the box and it's not what they were expecting? You've got a problem.
When that happens, you basically have two options: litigation or arbitration. Litigation is what you see in the movies, a formal public court case. It can take forever, cost a fortune, and damage your company's reputation. That's why in international business, almost everyone prefers arbitration. It's a private meeting with a neutral expert. It's faster, usually cheaper, and most importantly, it's confidential. It helps you solve the problem without a public fight.
Okay, let's pull all these ideas together now. We're going to build a simple blueprint, a final checklist of all the must-have items for a strong, protective export contract.
Here it is. Of course, you need the basics. What exactly are you selling and for how much? But a great contract goes deeper. It covers the how, like packing, delivery, and payment terms. And then, and this is so important, it includes your safety net.
A force majeure clause, for instance, protects everyone from things you can't control, like a natural disaster. And as we've discussed, you absolutely must include clauses that name arbitration for disputes and clearly state which country's law will govern the deal.
So you see, an export contract is so much more than just a legal document. It's your roadmap. It's your guide. It's the solid foundation that gives you the confidence to do business anywhere in the world. With a great contract in hand, the only real question left is, where will you go next?